You can build the most beautiful raised bed in the world, fill it with compost that cost you good money, water it perfectly, and still end up with soil that feels dead. No worm castings on the surface, no loose, crumbly structure, just hard, lifeless dirt that dries out fast. That was me a few seasons ago, wondering why my neighbour had worms pouring out of every spadeful while my beds looked like a desert. The mistake was not what I was missing. It was what I was adding. Worms don't leave because your soil is poor. They leave because your soil is hostile. This guide is about the exact ingredients that chase worms away and the shortcuts I now use to turn raised beds into worm magnets within weeks instead of years. Fresh manure is not worm food, it is worm poison. The first thing I stopped adding was fresh manure. I used to spread it straight from the cowshed, thinking I was giving the soil a protein shake. What I was actually adding was heat, ammonia, and unstable nitrogen that burns delicate worm skin. When manure is fresh, it can reach temperatures over 60 degrees Celsius as it decomposes, and worms cannot survive in that environment. Even a thin layer can turn the top of your bed into a no-go zone. The shortcut is, well, aging and diluting. For cow or goat manure, I now compost it for at least 3 months, turning it every couple of weeks. When it no longer smells sharp and, feels cool in the hand, I use it at a ratio of 1 part manure compost to 4 parts soil or finished compost. If I only have semi-aged manure, I brew it into a manure tea using 1 shovel of manure to a 20-litre bucket of water, let it steep for 5 days, then water the soil, never pouring it directly where I want worms to live. Citrus peels and acidic kitchen scraps make worms evacuate silently. People love throwing orange peels and lemon rinds into their beds, thinking they break down fast. They do not. Citrus oils are antimicrobial and acidic, and they create patches where worms simply won't pass. I dug into one bed and found beautiful worm tunnels everywhere except around the citrus waste. My shortcut is pre-rotting all acidic scraps. I keep a small compost bucket just for citrus, pineapple skins and tomato cores. I let that mix rot completely until it smells earthy, not sharp. Only then do I add it to the bed, and I never exceed a ratio of 1 part acidic compost to 10 parts regular compost in any single application. Synthetic fertilizers create chemical deserts underground. Granular fertilizers look harmless, but to worms they feel like salt. High analysis NPK products, they really spike soil salinity and can burn moisture from worm bodies. Just one heavy application can push them down or even right out of your raised bed entirely. I replace synthetics with slow biological feeding. My current blend for every new bed is, 2 buckets of leaf compost, 1 bucket of worm castings, and about half a bucket of wood ash, all mixed thoroughly into the top 20 centimeters of soil. Wood ash is used sparingly, never more than 1 cup per square meter, to avoid those alkalinity spikes. This mix, it feeds microbes first, and honestly, microbes are what worms actually come for. Sawdust and fresh wood shavings, they actually steal nitrogen and end up starving worms. Now, fresh sawdust might look like organic gold, but as it breaks down, it consumes nitrogen really aggressively, leaving the soil empty of the proteins that worms need. Beds that are heavy in raw sawdust might feel fluffy to the touch, but honestly, they're pretty much biologically dead. So the fix is charging the carbon before it goes into the bed. For every bucket of sawdust, I soak it in a solution made from 1 tablespoon of urea or urine to 5 litres of water for about 48 hours, and then I compost it for at least 1 month. After that, I blend 1 part charged sawdust to 3 parts compost. Only then does it actually become worm-friendly. Coffee grounds and ash in excess, well, they turn soil into a hostile zone. A sprinkle of coffee grounds is fine, really, but a thick layer is not. Grounds compact into a crust that repels water and air, suffocating worms below. Wood ash, when overused, spikes pH and burns living organisms. My rule is simple. Coffee grounds never exceed 1 cup per square metre per month, and they are always mixed into compost first. Wood ash never exceeds 1 cup per square metre per season, mixed deeply into moist soil, never sprinkled dry on the surface. Once I removed these hostile inputs, I added one simple practice that honestly changed everything. I buried a worm buffet trench. Every 2 weeks, I dig a narrow trench about 15 centimetres deep across the bed and fill it with a mix of kitchen scraps that have already started breaking down shredded leaves and a handful of old compost. The ratio is 2 parts scraps to 3 parts leaves to 1 part compost. I cover it with soil and water lightly. Within 10 days, that trench becomes a worm highway. They follow the food underground, spreading life through the entire bed. Worms are not just creatures that happen to live in soil. They are, in fact, messengers. If they are missing, well, something is wrong, either chemically or biologically. The moment I stopped feeding the soil like a factory and started feeding it like a living system, the worms returned on their own. No buying, no releasing, just fixing the environment. If your raised beds feel empty, don't go looking for worms. Go looking for what is pushing them away. Remove the heat, the acid, the salts, and the raw carbon. Replace them with gentle, balanced, biologically active inputs, and the worms will do the rest. If this shortcut saves your beds even 1 season of frustration, hit subscribe, share this with another serious gardener, and let's keep building soil that actually stays alive.